So recently I made the decision to build my very own studio desk. This is actually something that I've done before. Over the years I've actually changed up my setup a little bit and sometimes built a new desk to work around that. But this is the first time I've built a desk while having a YouTube channel, and I thought maybe this is something that you would like to follow along with. Check out some behind the scenes, what it might take and involve to build your own desk, and why I might choose to do that over buying one ready-made. I really have no idea whether you're going to like this or not, but I have the footage and I thought, why not bring you along on the journey? So with that, let's dive in and I'll walk you through some of my decision making, some of the pros and cons, some of the challenges I had, and show you the finished product as well as the journey it took to get there. Hey, my name is Steve and welcome back to Command Shift New. Recently I moved space. As you can see, you probably haven't seen this corner of my room before. So I recently moved and that gave me the opportunity to think about the space that I was moving into. I rent, and that can be a difficult challenge when trying to do a studio inside a house that you're renting and you've only got certain things that you can and can't do with the place. I'm thinking about releasing a video with some top tips on how to make a studio work inside a rental. So if that's something that's interesting you, why not subscribe and ding that bell so that you get notified when that one lands. Let me know in the comments as well what challenges you might like me to touch on. But with this new space came the opportunity to review my workflow and how it had changed since I last built my desk. So here we are. Let's cue up some behind the scenes footage of just me in the workshop sweating it out in Australia in the middle of summer. That was completely mental, by the way. I have no idea why I chose to do that. But while that's happening, let's talk about some pros and cons, run you through the process, and let's dive in. So why build over buy? That's obviously a pretty important question that might be front of mind for you right now. Why bother building something when you could just buy one straight off the bat? Well, of course, expense to begin with. Building one myself, I already had all of the tools, I already had the space to build it in, and I have the knowledge to do it, so it made it much more cost effective to build something custom to what I wanted. Studio desks and console desks are very expensive, and even the most, even the cheapest ones are still pretty expensive and often quite rickety because they've shortcut some things or just a wireframe or something like that. I wouldn't trust my gear on it. So they're pretty expensive, and if you get a custom ordered one as well, it's even more expensive. And custom order is quite good because you can work in your gear to suit that, situation and work your workflow to suit that desk. Whereas when you buy a store-bought one, it's designed to house, certain equipment and certain gear that you might not have or need and not really work to your workflow. So by building your own desk, you can avoid the cost, you can make it set up perfectly for your workflow and for your equipment and just shortcut that process. You're not shortcutting time though, that is definitely a huge thing. Now, I had three things that were really on my side when I was going into this project. And I think it's important to mention these because it's not going to be the best option for everybody. Sometimes it's going to be actually cheaper in the long run or better in the long run to buy a desk. This is more for people who have either the tools, the skills, or the time to do this. Now, the first of the three things is I have experience in this. I'm not a carpenter or anything. I didn't trade or do an apprenticeship or anything like that, but my dad was super into carpentry and I picked a lot up from him growing up, and he built a lot of the furniture around the house and I helped him with that. And over the last 10 years when I've been living away from home, I've come to building my own furniture, and I've built a number of things that were very rickety to begin with, but each one has got better, and as a result I have the experience to be able to know what's going to kind of be strong enough, how to kind of shape the wood and style it in a particular way. I have experience on my side there. I don't think it's the type of experience where I'm going to confidently go make furniture for other people like one of my friends actually suggested, and I was like, definitely not. I don't think I'm at that level. But I have enough knowledge to make something that I'm happy with. It also meant I had the tools and the space. When my dad passed away, I actually, inherited a lot of his tools, and in the meantime, over the years, have been maintaining and adding to that. So I had the toolkits in order to make this work and to be able to work in that space. And over the last year, I think on this channel you would have seen or heard, if you followed along to different videos, that I've been in a little bit of a housing crisis myself, and we've moved from one place to another, and for a brief period over Christmas we were just living with my mum. So my wife and I were living with my mum, and that meant that I was back in my dad's old workshop So I had the space and the tools to do it. And surprisingly, the third one is I actually had the time. Over 3 weeks of Christmas, we had holiday where the campus shut down, so there were no more classes to lecture at, no more preparation work, marking has all been done, all that sort of stuff. So that 3 weeks, some of those days were Christmas days, New Year's and whatnot, but I had some time there to be able to do that. I had a lot of projects going on at the same time, but I really was like, I really want to do this because I know I'm moving soon and I would really like to get this desk into the new place. So I just took the time to do it, but I had the time, which was good. Now, if I've done this before, you might be asking what the hell happened to my previous desks. Well, I think the biggest thing is that as your workflow changes, your desks have to kind of change along with it. In the past, I've been more of a mix engineer and focused on mixing tracks for other people, which meant a lot of hardware that I wanted close by in a desk format. But then as I recaptured my composition sort of spark, which was originally what I trained in, and I started composing for projects, for film scores, for production library music, for myself and my own enjoyment, that meant that my workflow really changed, or at least the equipment that I needed around me to make that happen really changed. So that's sort of meant that my desk kept evolving with these changes. The desk before this one was trying to make both of those environments work, where the rack gear was either side of it and the keyboard and everything was in front of me, but I kind of found like I just had too much in front of me. So it was time to change this up and actually get a new desk to work with this workflow. So when it came time to plan the desk, I kind of knew the aesthetics that I wanted. I didn't want a typical kind of composing desk. I wanted it to look more like an old sort of writing desk, or like a solid built desk from like, early 1900s or something, that was robust and strong enough to hold the stuff that I wanted to put on top of it, but also had a lot of storage close at hand that I can make use of as well. I knew that I wanted to go back to a keyboard drawer, which was a bit controversial for me because I was getting sick and tired of keyboard drawers banging into my knees every time I wheeled my chair in. So I got rid of them in the last desk, and I really missed that because having the keyboard drawer meant that I could get the keyboard out of the way when I wanted to type, but when I wanted to play music, I could bring that keyboard out, and I still wasn't too far away from the actual, mouse and keyboard. So it was a lot better having a keyboard drawer. But I wanted a slimline one. My keyboard, thankfully, from Atura is a very thin keyboard, so I can make a very thin drawer to get that, and it could fit both the keyboard and the fader controller for all the orchestral stuff that I do, and that worked really, really well. So I'm very happy that I got that put into my desk. But there were compromises to the desk, and one thing was that I needed to make it work with the visual monitors that I have. I have this kind of like big center monitor and 2 monitors to the side, and if I increased or put like a hutch in to put some gear in, it would mean that all the monitors would have to go up, which would actually get in the way of the studio monitors, as in the speakers, and then I wouldn't be able to reliably hear them and mix with them. And visually, I'd start to crane my neck looking up at these monitors. So ultimately, I had to sacrifice one thing, which was putting any kind of rack gear into this. I was looking at this hutch at the back for maybe 2 or 3 units size, but I ended up giving it a miss to avoid, that issue with the monitors. I will be building a separate rack unit that will actually live to my right of that, so that then it won't be too far away. I can just adjust things, turn back. That's kind of very common in studios, particularly if you've got a large format console and then, rack gear off to the side. So subscribe and follow along, because I'm sure I'll share a video on that as well. One thing as well that it needed to really be was modular. I have moved, I think, 3 times over the last 12 months. So it really needed to be able to be broken apart very easily and moved at a moment's notice, because I'm renting, so it means that, if you need to move, you need to go when you do. So breaking it apart very easily was just a must-have. So it's really just broken down into 2 parts. There's drawers at the bottom, on the left and the right, and they're both individual units, and then the desk that goes on top. Simple and easy to pack down. Now, there were a lot of challenges in building this, as there are for any kind of building. One thing that's pretty unique to Australia, I live out here in Australia in Brisbane, and over Christmas it is hot, like super hot. I was sweating so much. Inside the garage that I was working in, it is covered in a metal roof, and the outside temperatures were getting to 32, 33. The inside temperatures were getting to like 36, 37, which is not ideal. It's not actually ideal to work under those conditions. So I had to work very slowly, very carefully, drink a lot of water, and keep a lot of fans on. I actually had this like little portable air conditioner that did nothing to cool down the space, but did act as a very beautiful fan during that stage that could just cool me down. So it was very important that I stayed well hydrated and cool as much as possible. Thankfully, there were quite a few days where it didn't reach those extreme temperatures. It was just mostly around the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock point of some of the hottest days where it just was super hot. I had to just stop working at times. That, of course, tied into the time limitation. I only had 3 weeks off where I knew that I was going to have time during the day that I could actually do this before it was relegated to weekends. And frankly, I just have so many projects going on around my lecturing responsibilities, which I do full time, that it just probably wasn't going to happen. So I needed to get it done within that time frame. And if you don't have a lot of time, it can be quite hard to take on a challenge like this. The size of the desk was actually quite an issue. You would have seen through some of these clips that I actually had to get my wife to help me with cutting down the timber. I was just using standard plywood, and it was 12 mils thick, but it was 2.4 meter sheets by 1.2 meter sheets. It was big, and it was hard to kind of like chop up down to size. The actual top of the desk now is with trimming just a little bit over 2 meters across by 1 meter deep, and I designed it quite large because I wanted a lot of stuff that's going to be on the top and a lot of space to be able to do drawing or sketches for different designs that I needed to do, or writing or whatever I needed to do on the surface top. So that was an important aspect of my workflow, is to have enough space for equipment and sketching and stuff that I needed to do. So it meant that I had extra help from time to time to manage this thing. Now, I've already mentioned some of the materials that I was using. In order to keep this cost effective, I was using fairly cost effective timber, as in plywood sheets. Don't know how many plies it was in the end, but it was 12 mils thick, and I was using a lot of bracing. You would have seen in some of the videos that the top of my desk is basically one sheet with a series of braces underneath, and then another sheet underneath that. And that basically resulted in kind of a stronger top without doubling the thickness and gluing 2 sheets together to create a solid top. I used a nicer piece for the top. I sprained for a piece that was twice as much as each of the other pieces, but it meant that it was a very nice top of the desk. But then the rest of the desk was just made from construction plywood, essentially. Each sheet cost me around 50 Australian dollars, except for the top sheet, about 100 Australian dollars. And all up, that meant that with, I think, 4 sheets of the construction timber and 1 of the nice plywood, I think it was so about $300 for the wood, which was pretty good. You add in runners for about $110 to get the different draw runners, and also add in about $200 worth of finishing stuff like varnish and stain, which I'll get to in a moment. The whole desk came to maybe $650 in materials, and then it's just the cost of your time after that. But $650 for a solid desk that would have cost me maybe $15 to $2,000. That's a pretty good saving and a pretty good trade-off. Plus, it works perfectly for my workflow, so I'm very happy with that. Speaking of the finishing process, as I mentioned before, it was a large chunk of the money. A surprising amount, really. But, it's the last step of the desk build. If you don't finish it well, it won't look as nice and you won't enjoy it as much and it'll bug you. So for me, I sprained on getting really good varnish and really good stain from, I think the brand's called Feast Watson or something like that, but it's really, really nice and it's come up really well. It's also one of the worst things to do in the whole process. I absolutely hate finishing it because there are inevitably drips, there are inevitably brightening where between varnish coats I've accidentally taken off some of the stain. It's just part of it. It's part of the experience. So in a way, it kind of makes it look more rustic. So I'm kind of happy with that. It's okay. But it is one of the worst parts of the whole build. You also have to kind of wear protection and make sure you're not breathing in all these fumes and that sort of stuff. And you have to leave the desk to sit there for a couple of days. So once it's done, it's looking great, but you can't touch it for like a week while everything sets hard. One of the worst parts of the process. But we got through it and it's come up very nicely. So the important question, am I happy with it? I am very happy with it. I've really enjoyed writing music in this desk. It's been here for about 3 months now, 3-4 months. We've been in this place and I've been writing music with it, every week. And the workflow aspect is huge and fantastic. So I think it's well worthwhile if you meet those same 3 things as well. If you have a little bit of experience under your belt, you have the tools and space, and you have the time, it is worth it to get something exactly like you want. So as I said, I need to build a rack unit to go with this. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that, and subscribe so you don't miss that either. But otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this. This is a little bit out of the ordinary for content that I typically do, but I just wanted to bring you along with the process. So let me know if you enjoyed it, but otherwise I will catch you in the next one.